Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this exclusive video interview series brought to you by Oracle in association with People Matters. I'm Yasmin Tak, Senior Editor with People Matters, and I will be your host for this conversation. Oracle, along with People Matters, is curating a series of video interviews titled The Reboot Toolkit HR's Guide to Reimagine the Workplace. We all know that the workplace is going to be new for HR too. There's a growing consensus among HR and business leaders that the emerging new workplace will be hybrid in nature. This means companies need to reimagine and redesign their strategies. From recruiting, experience, and skilling, companies will need to rethink workplace practices in a way that enables them to make optimum use of talent with flexibility as a key business value proposition. In order to understand more on this, we have in focus three industries: BFSI, healthcare, and IT/ITES, from which renowned industry leaders of top notch organizations will share their invaluable inputs on various facets of reimagining work. These inputs will then be stitched together in the form of a first of its kind video ebook, which is designed to give you a holistic view of the emerging future, technology priorities, and strategic action steps that business and HR leaders need to be thinking about. This video ebook features some of the best and brightest leaders reflecting on the principles that they will rely on to make the most of a quickly changing marketplace. And today we have with us Apollo Hospital's Senior Vice President and Head HR, S.V. Kiran. Kiran is an admired HR strategist in the Indian healthcare industry. Kiran is a technophile, change enabler, and a people leader. With over 2 decades of experience, he has embarked on the journey of transforming human resources function and achieving the organizational dream of being digital friendly, with every employee relinquishing the moments and pride of experiencing my HR at my fingertips. Thank you so much for joining us, Kiran. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And we also have with us Oracle Corporation's head HCM Application Strategy India, Hardeep Singh. Over the last 2 decades, he has been an entrepreneur, a student of human resources, and a consultant to many Fortune 500 organizations on areas of talent management, organization design and development, employee experience, leadership development, succession planning, and career management. Thank you so much, Hardeep, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Yasmin, and thank you very much, Kiran. It's a privilege and pleasure to be with both of you today.
Same here, and looking forward to a great conversation with the both of you and learning a lot also. So, without further ado, let me begin with the first question, and I'll come to you first, Kiran. So, what, according to you, are the critical human touch points that technology helps you create?
Great. When the pandemic started, right, basically everything came to a halt, right? There is no way our people could come, and we are in a unique industry where we are the warriors to fight this pandemic. So, unlike many other industries, as lockdown was announced and people could sit at home, process should reach home and nothing else, we were one set of people who had to go to office, take care of the patients who are trickling in, and this is one unique situation where we did not know ourselves as to what is the right thing to do to treat patients who will come with COVID, because this is never written in a textbook. This is a pandemic that just started. We have little information from the world as to what they have done to treat people. Now, given this situation, when everything is cut off, the only thing that would come to our rescue was technology. I'm sure many of you would know that in the Indian healthcare scenarios, in the Indian healthcare setup, technology, especially when it comes to people, is not well leveraged. So this was a situation when we said, "Hey, let's sit back, think, and see how we can, leverage technology to reach out to people." And this was the most important time to reach out to people, primarily because they were going through multiple stress. They had an environmental stress because all around is a lockdown. There's a big fear factor of COVID. Nobody knew how it would transmit. Nobody knew whether we at which stage of transmission we are at. Nobody knew exactly as to how long it is going to be, and so on and so forth. So they had an environmental stress. They had a work stress because suddenly everything came to a halt. They don't have an office to go. They don't have much of work to do, etc. Third is the family or the home stress, right? Your house help have stopped coming in, right? All of you are at home and schools are shut, etc., etc. And you are all on your own to manage everything at home on your own. So, given that, we said we need to reach out to people, we need to be standing up with them, and we need to do whatever we need to do for them to actually tide over this process. And we knew it is for a few months or probably even a half a year or a year. And therefore we said let's leverage technology. This is the first time that many of us within the company started using electronic meetings or e-meetings. Like we started using Zooms, we started using Microsoft Teams, or any other like Google meetings, etc., etc. And whoever thought whatever is this thing, and over a period of time we have standardized these tools. But initially, the people started using it. People started using things like WhatsApp calls, WhatsApp video calls, or whatever, whatever. So we used technology to first reach out to people, to see them physically through the video, and then say, "Hey, I'm fine, you're fine," and things are all fine for each one of us. The second thing that we had to reach out to was basically our patients. Well, it's not that the disease has gone up. It's not that our patients who are undergoing a procedure, have undergone a procedure, and are in the hospital. Suddenly, what would happen to them? Like suddenly everything closed. So other thing that we have actually used technology is to reach out to our patients, their attendants who many a times are far off, and they are worried about, hey, somebody dear to me is admitted in the hospital. What will happen to them? So reach out to them, and thirdly, reach out to the near and dear ones of the both the employees and the patients staying far away. So this is one thing that we reached out. Second thing that we reached out was for help, right? How do you help? So people would require groceries, nobody planned for it. People would require in terms of money. People would require in terms of help and assistance, the do's and don'ts, when the pandemic strikes, etc., etc. So we reached out to people to help them, again using some of these technologies, because we didn't want anybody to really come over, or there is a physical meeting, because it's not that masks were available. Suddenly the masks that are available to us in our in our periphery, whether it is in our pharmacies or outside, all of them got exhausted. And in a healthcare system or a setup, mask is one important thing that we use on a day-on-day basis, even before the pandemic struck. And therefore we had to really reach out to people in terms of providing these kind of consumables. Third was in terms of giving them an assurance that as a healthcare workers, right, it is their responsibility to come and treat this pandemic. Now, to create that assurance for them, for their family members, and that the fact that we are there to take care of them, the only way we could reach out to them, spend hours and hours to talk to them, give them that confidence and convince them to come back, because that was one stage when many doctors, I mean, especially the junior doctors, the nurses, etc., felt a little afraid, they were a little scared, and then therefore we had to reach out. So we reached out to them to educate them, to reassure them, to tell them that this is the time that we need to stand up. And while we do that, we are not sacrificing anything in terms of life or family or anything. It's something that is safe to do, etc. So we had to reach out for safety. We had to reach out for support in terms of psychological support to people, right? And the way you do psychological support is not just say the HR reaching out. It will be the leadership reaching out. It will be our other clinicians reaching out to people. There are instances when even our clinical psychologists have reached out to people. So this was the other way to do it, in terms of telling people, hey, don't worry. And for this, again, we leverage technology. And the most important thing in terms of our setup is also to reach out to people with their clinical information, data, reports. And this we had done primarily for our patients, so that they are reassured and they're taken care of. So one of the things, I mean, we were just sitting and imagining the other day, just before our second quarter board meeting, had there not been technology, what we would have done in this pandemic, things would have been very tough, very different to handle this pandemic, had we not had this technology that we have used to tide over this crisis.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Kiran. I think, yes, the healthcare industry has faced the challenges. It was completely unprecedented for them, and they've been at the center, at the core of this entire pandemic. So, some great initiatives that you shared. So, Hardeep, would you like to add something to that and tell us what are the critical human touch points that technology is helping people create now?
Yeah, I think Kiran summed up very, and he shared from his personal experience about managing the workforce during this last 7-8 months. It beautifully shared how technology has helped. Uh, I think this entire piece of working with employees is very well established, be it for be it the screening experience, the joining experience, the onboarding, the development, the digital experience, and also the piece around how can I get work done. Technology enables all these human touch points. So let's say if I need some resources, how seamless it is for getting work done, getting information done. How do I know about which teams are available, which teams are not? All that information pieces, I think, is fairly mature and ready in the ecosystem. I see two shifts. One which is already begun, which is the distributed workforce. So you have workforce which is working on remote, which is working on demand, which is working on the go. So what that does is that the touch points there, the human touch points need to be reviewed and seen very differently. So for example, for an on-the-go workforce, how can we create downtime? How can we ensure that there is enough balance, or not balance, I would say, enough allocation and time for family and for personal interest given for the employee? I think that's the other piece which organizations now become extremely sensitive. The third piece I would say is this, and which is very nascent globally even today, is about how I could uh, how organizations can embrace all kinds of models of work. So the classical model of getting work done has been, okay, you have contractors and you have, which is whatever is non-strategic, you may contract it out. But today, strategic, high-end work is getting outsourced in the name of gig or contractors. So now, and has tremendous impact on ramifications of balance sheet. It helps you create a balance sheet which is nimble, it has less stress on it. And there are, of course, there's a case out on the merits and demerits, but I think the writing is on the wall that organizations will adopt the contractual, the gig workforce, even for high-end specialized functions. So now, once that happens, what will be the touch points there? How some of the questions are big. Is while the person is on demand, while you can access the tool, but he or she is working with multiple organizations. How will you ensure that he or she aligns and quickly assimilates the organization culture and delivers only an internal experience to stakeholders, also to customers in case you take in case you adopt it. Secondly, how will you ensure that the gig workforce prioritize your organization's work versus other organizations? So I think those are the other cases which will begin to play, and how and technology will come in very, very strongly to solve for them. Notice that all of this is happening remotely. Physical interaction is, while it will come back and it is required, but I think a significant amount of remote working will come into place along with the gig workforce. So that will be a very interesting play of different kinds of workforce coming together and how technology will deliver and solve.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adeep. I think, yes, I totally agree. It is the time for organizations to go hybrid, as they're saying. And how do you manage a hybrid workplace with technology is going to be the key there. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing this point.
And I think the healthcare industry has adopted this for a long time. In fact, they were perhaps the pioneers. So, you have specialized doctors who could be on payroll. You have doctors who could come on consulting gigs for a certain hour of the day. They would work with different.
Yes.
And that piece is already there with the healthcare industry to a great extent.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, Kiran, I'll come to you again. So, how are you at this point in time leveraging technology to engage and improve workplace experience?
Yeah, that's a good question, Asmin. I mean, at this point of time, as I was just mentioning, when there's a lot of psychological impact on my employees, I mean, we need to really engage with them and improve the experience to make people feel wanted. Right? They have to be felt wanted and taken care of at the workplace. And since there's no way we could do a town hall, we could not do any engagement activities like a picnic or taking them to some games or etc. etc. The only way we could have done this is by leveraging technology. So it will be interesting when I share with you some of these things that we have done. Wherein first and the foremost is that we created some e-dockets for our people to look at it, and we actually reached out to people and started doing e-trainings. I mean, otherwise traditionally people were used to a classroom or on-the-job training methodologies where my trainers will go on the floor, talk to people, train them, etc. From there, we have completely moved to electron e-training. Let me put it like this. And when we say e-training, we also brought in this concept of you can learn anything anywhere, and we are available to you at any point of time that is there. And this is the first time I saw many of the people using their own phones, their own data, etc., to log on and actually get involved themselves. So one of the things that has happened because of this is we could reach people when they were, say, at their leisure. So which means, say, when they were at their hostel, for example, if I talk of nursing category of people, or I talk of some of my senior team members over a e-breakfast, right? And we celebrated birthdays by doing a e-cake cutting, right? So we had all of them join us the meeting. We had a virtual cake and we did a cake cutting. If any of our senior members led, we did a e-farewell, right? When all of us connected across the country. And this is the first time when people actually saw that, hey, if suppose a senior member in Delhi leaves, right, most of the time what you do is that the Delhi team does it, and many of us sitting in, say, Chennai or Hyderabad are not really able to join. But this was one instance when, all of us joined electronically, and the guy who was leaving us had the entire leadership team, the senior management team, and everybody joined him to say, bye to him and wish him all the best for his career, because he was retiring actually. So what we have seen is right from reaching out to people, in terms of their day-to-day work, reaching out to people in terms of reinforcing the fact that we are there, keeping them engaged by doing a lot of online quizzes, keeping them engaged by reaching out to their family members. So there were instances when we did some engagement activities for the children, for example, because they're always at home and they're bothering the parents. The parents say, hey, I'm not able to balance. So you engage with children. You engage with parents, who are aged, who has a lot of comorbidities. So how do you actually stay safe? What are the do's and don'ts when you are, say, a daughter or a son, or somebody comes home, daughter-in-law or whatever comes home? What are the precautions that they should take? So you engage with the parents, and it was very interesting to see that many of the parents, especially of our junior staff, weren't used to anything called a Microsoft Team meeting or a Zoom meeting. And when we reached out to them and they clicked it on their phones, they felt very, very happy about it, and they knew that they could talk to their people at any point of time and see them physically, etc. So involved with them right from what I would say on their work front, on their time front in terms of keeping them busy and engaged. We have engaged with them at their family front, both with kids and parents. We have engaged with them in terms of learning front, and we have engaged with them in terms of reassurance and telling them that hey, we are there. And so this was done through e-trainings, e-books, virtual meetings, virtual conferences, and virtual celebrations, and then sinking in the fact that come what may, we know how to reach you, we know how to stay with you, and we know how to be together and fight this together.
Awesome. I think there were some great initiatives that you shared. I think, yes, creating employee experience in a physical environment when you're meeting people is different, but doing it virtually, and that too with so many different touch points, I think some great initiatives. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks, Kiran. So I'll come to you again, Kiran. So how do you think, since you're already talking about, how the pandemic has changed the way we work, so how has the role of HR changed as a result of the shift towards making work human?
Okay. So this is again a very interesting question, Asmin, because here we had two things. One, when you say making work human, right? There were two challenges. One is that there's a pandemic, so the requirement of people have significantly gone up. But at the same time, you will burn out if you don't take care of them, etc. So how do you actually bring in that human factor into the whole thing? I'll start, one right at the joining front. If you see healthcare, e-joining was something that wasn't heard of. We quickly brought in the entire mechanism we have put in place to bring in e-joinings, right? Second is that when you say this thing, we redid our rosters, we redid the way we work. Otherwise, healthcare used to work in a particular way. If there's a nurse, they'll come in a 6 and 12 hour shift. If there's a junior doctor, they'll come and say 8 hour shift or 12-hour shifts. Admin people will come from 9 to 5:30, and so on and so forth. So they are all well-defined roasting mechanisms. We, for the first time, said change this. We brought in something called break shifts. We brought in, 2 shifts followed by a break, right? We brought in, separate stay facilities for people to say, hey, if you are staying with a family and you see that there's a risk, we'll provide you a place to stay, which is safe, secure. We completely changed our food menu for our people, right? We made it more protein rich, etc., in terms of the diet, because those days we knew that high protein could be one of the things that could help people resist in a COVID infection, because it helps you build the immunity. We gave things like vitamin C tablets, etc., because they are supposed to be boosting immunity, etc. Right, and we brought in a work-life balance. Otherwise, as I said, people were quite roasted in a particular way. People really never understood this work-life balance concept. So for those of the people who are working from home, we said, hey, just because you're at home, don't sit in front of your laptop for 12 hours, 14 hours. You still follow 9 to 5:30. We would not want you to approach somebody or somebody to approach you beyond, say, 5:30 or max 6, so that you don't get lost into your day-to-day work and forget about everything else. We brought in 2 other concepts of how do you stay healthy by bringing in concepts like meditation, yoga, right, and exercises. Some of the exercises that you can do when you are at home or in an office environment, etc. So to bring about the touch point, to look at each and every aspect of a person's well-being, right from the time the guy wakes up to the time till he sleeps. What is it that we can do to keep on telling them how to remain human, how to live normally, and not really get into so many things that are happening around and take stress, have sleepless nights, give sleepless nights to others, and then in the whole process make the whole system and the environment complex.
HR's role in this has been really, really, at the core of being the change enablers of this entire journey. So thank you, Kiran, for sharing that. Hadeep, I have the same question for you actually. So how do you think has the role of HR changed as a result of the shift towards making work human?
One I've already spoken, which is about getting work done,
Yes.
Getting people to support this piece, which is around full-time employees, gigs, and so on and so forth. I think the other key piece is about how HR will lead the front of innovation. And this will be in creating newer models of delivery for the organization. This could be not limiting to organization structure, how to do teams, or even for that matter, the fundamental piece around whether you need to do a job or you want to do a gig or you want to do a task. I think it's a significant amount of innovation which HR will lead. The other piece which I see what has resulted about making work more human is about fundamentally taking care not only of the employee but also of the employee's family. And I would not use the word employee anymore. I would say the person associated. It could be a gig. It could be anyone. So, and I think Kiran and Apollo have done a beautiful job around engaging with families and taking care of their families as well. And it's just not limiting to about providing hardware support there. It's about really supporting the family, supporting the stresses the family is going through. It could be medical conditions, emotional, any of that. The other piece which I see is an emergence of newer roles coming in, and that's an outcome which is as work begins to become more human, there'll be new roles which are emerged, they have emerged or they will emerge. There'll be roles in the space of an HR technology architect. There'll be roles around employee experience designers, and of course, people data scientists, the people who will make the case for hyper personalization and prediction. So I see the HR function sort of shifting, the role of HR shifting to a more humane organization, to a more data-led organization. And it might sound contradictory that how could we do more data-led, but my belief is that as more technology comes in, as more data science comes in, the more humane HR and organizations will be.
Totally agree on that point with you. The more technology comes in, the more human is what we need to become. So thank you, thanks Adi for sharing those points with us. So I'm coming to you again, Kiran. What when you look at your industry's context, and you did speak a bit about that in the beginning. So how has the industry changed as a result of digitization of operations over the past 8 to 9 months?
Okay. Healthcare was one industry which was having a lot of physical contact. Patients would literally come to the hospital even for a OPD consult. They'll come to the hospital for diagnostics. They'll come to the hospital for giving samples. They'll come to the hospital to as a follow-up after they get the results of their investigations, and of course they will come to the hospital for surgeries, etc. As the pandemic struck, and this is one pandemic which has kept even the healthcare workers in risk, because unlike other pandemics where only the patients are at risk, here the healthcare workers are at risk. This is the first time I think the healthcare industry has gone through a major change in terms of its thought process and its approach to the entire way the care is delivered to the patients. One of the significant shift that has happened to us is that the number of e-consults have significantly gone up, right? And e-consults, previously, you would have heard this word telemedicine. Telemedicine was more to connect people in the remote areas who will take much longer time to travel, etc. Now, the telemedicine is also gone. It's all about e-consult. And all our doctors are consulting their patients, sitting from the comfort of their home and still delivering the services that they were to deliver. Second thing that came up is that there's a lot of home collection of samples that have gone up because people weren't wanting to really come out. And once the home collection of samples happen, the reports are generated and reports are loaded into our portals, and our patients and our doctors, actually access these reports electronically, and then there's an electronic prescription that is given to the patient, and then your e-pharmacy delivers the medicines, and the patient takes the medicine and gets all right. So if you see the entire OPD care continuum, right from a consult to your investigations to your follow-up post the investigation reports, and therefore the medication, everything has become electronic because the e-pharmacy has really grown post-COVID. So the only physical touch point has been the sample collection in the whole thing and nothing else end to end. Right. So the e-consults have been one big thing. The second thing is app-based medical services. Previously, if you see many of our phones, etc., we didn't have a healthcare app. Right. If somebody asks you what is the number that you'll call for an emergency, for an ambulance, then you quickly do a Google, etc. From there, we have moved on to an app-based, healthcare service or healthcare providing. The third thing that has really significantly grown is the electronic medical records, because every hospital has to cater to the patients who are no longer going to carry those huge bags of papers and X-rays and films that they used to carry to the hospital. So hospitals had to quickly get onto the electronic records piece of it, and they had to embark on a journey of digital transformation, wherein they can even look at and monitor certain sets of treatments that are being given. Say, for example, if somebody requires a cardiac surgery, angioplasty, or some on-call treatment, etc. One of the things now we are doing as a leverage is that we are a large organization, and I'm just giving the example of my organization. I'm sure others in the healthcare are also doing this, is that we have created something called, say, if I take an oncology, we have created something called as cancer management teams. We electronically connect with the expert, whosoever is there across the country, or a team of experts. Then they come across as a tumor board, which previously used to be pretty local, and they give the best to the patient. So the point that I'm trying to make here is the technology, apart from getting the e-consult, etc., has brought in the best of the minds together, which was previously limited to one hospital or one or two hospitals in that geography, to leveraging the niche expertise of the doctors across the country and giving the best to the patient, etc. These are some of the technology-driven initiatives that have happened in healthcare.
Thanks for sharing that, Kiran. I'll come to you, Hardeep, for one more question, actually. So when you look at the future, what emerging technologies do you think are going to change the healthcare system significantly?
The healthcare system, I don't know if I'm an expert or even capable to comment, but I think the key technology which will really make a shift in healthcare is robotics and 5G. So imagine you have a stable 5G network, which can do data speed and work at a much, I mean, data flows can happen at an incredibly fast pace. And with the advent of robotics, there are trials in parts of the world where surgery is done through electronically and through remotely. So you have a robotic arm, let's say in a village or in Mumbai, and the doctor is based out of, let's say, Chennai or vice versa, and they could do a surgery using a robotic arm on a 5G network. Now that's like about 4 or 5 years ahead, but that's from a healthcare piece or whatever little I can imagine. Coming to an HR space, I think the AI piece and the digital assistant piece will really emerge. Digital assistant's been seen primarily as query resolution, solving for whatever is an employee asking for. But I think digital assistant will take the leapfrog from serving for employee requests to manager requests and to management requests. So I think that's the journey which digital assistants will go on, and they will ride on artificial intelligence. So for a manager, how will I resource my team? How will I create shifts? How will I create teams? I think these are elements which digital assistants will start. These are tasks and work which digital assistants will start performing. Um, in the context of healthcare, which nursing unit or which nurses work best with this particular doctor? I think those elements will start getting mature and start solving, and digital assistants will start solving for. Um, for management, digital assistant can go up to running analytics. Is there a correlation for a certain profile of people, for a certain gender, for a certain uh, distance from home, vis-a-vis operating with a certain locality? I think, and is there a case for attrition and productivity and retention? I think all of those tasks is what I see digital assistant starting for. I also spoke about earlier on the architecture. The architecture piece is very central. For HR technology, to have disparate systems and modules, the what it does, it contains the response time for an organization, for the technology architecture to not be as nimble as what a one stack can do. So if you make one change in the hiring mechanism, it can translate into all other elements of the HR, and thus making the case for data, and thus making the case for analytics and prediction. So all of that is getting connected, and more organizations are waking up to the requirement and to the benefits of a one stack HR architecture. Uh, the man-machine piece also I've spoken about, but interestingly, how humans are responding to technology, it's fascinating. Uh, I had not speculated the kind of adoption humans have done towards technology, especially in the workplace, in the enterprise construct. Today, we just concluded a survey, and Kiran, I wanted to share this with you as well. Uh, 92% of employees who were surveyed, they said they are more comfortable talking about stress with a home than with their manager. So it was fascinating about it. 6 months back, we done a survey. We said, "Who do you trust more, robo or manager?" We said 62% said we trust the robo. And at that moment, we said, "Okay, maybe for asking for leaves or doing some mundane tasks, I don't know, key coaching, key emotional aspect, I still can." It's very fascinating for all of us. Saying, okay, you know something so critical, so deeply emotional for my stress and my mental health. Rather talk to a bot than to a human. This completely blew us apart. This, of course, has ramifications around biases and all of those pieces which we need to stitch up as an industry. But I think the movement and the direction is very clear.
You're the expert. Tell us about some emerging technologies and let us know what you think about what Hardeep shared about those technologies.
Yeah, I mean, Hardeep, actually, I was quite, fascinated the way Hardeep shared it. It was very, very good. He really hit the nail on its head. Robo is definitely robots, and therefore, virtually operating the robots for surgeries is something that's going to be, that's something that we are going to see in the near future. As Hardeep said, about 5 years or even lesser, it all depends upon uninterrupted high-speed internet availability. Otherwise, you can control robots and laparoscopes, etc., from anywhere in the country. So that's definitely one, and there's a lot of work happening in robotics in our country. in Israel. It is a lot of that's one hub for robotics pertaining to medical industry. So there's a lot of work happening. Artificial intelligence is going to be play a major role in terms of transforming the way healthcare is being delivered, or even the analytics is being seen. So artificial intelligence and is going to definitely be another important thing. There are 3, 4 more interesting things that we can see, or we will see in the next 4, 5 years. One is wearables, right? Today, if you see an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or whatever, today they actually capture some of your vitals, whether it is heart rate or blood pressure or whatever, sleep patterns or whatever, and they transmit it to a device, say your phone right now to start with. The wearables are going to become a major one, wherein they are going to pick up a lot of other clinical parameters and not just give it to your phone, but to give it to your healthcare provider. So if Apollo is your healthcare provider, then they will transmit a lot of data to Apollo about how you are exercising, how you are sleeping, how you are eating, and so on and so forth. And therefore, using that data and the AI, which is artificial intelligence, will be able to tell you, hey, you're not living healthy, you're under stress, you're this thing, you need to do this, otherwise you are at risk. So the wearables combined with artificial intelligence is going to be a very deadly combination. Chatbots are going to become very, very common among the healthcare and its providers, because a lot of patients will quickly get onto the chatbots, get on and ask a few questions before they decide to seek an appointment or meet a doctor, etc. Now, another important thing that's going to come up are going to be the implants, right? Wearables is physically you can wear, remove, etc. At some stage, that maybe not in 5 years, but 7, 8, 9 years, you'll get something called as implants, when you just put it under the skin of the person, and you'll get remarkable data pertaining to this person's body, its well-being, its health, etc. The other important thing that we would see very soon is the nanotechnology for drug delivery. It will be very, very well used in case of oncology patients, the cancer patients, or for that matter, delivering, say, even antibiotics to specific sites in the human body, etc. So these are some of the things that we will see in the next 4, 5, 6 years. And all these devices or all this technology is going to only make medicine more precise, more real-time, and available.
Absolutely, and looking forward to those actually. So thank you, Kiran, for adding on to that and sharing those insights. So now it's time to move on to our rapid fire questions. So I have 2 questions for both our leaders, and I'll quickly jump onto those. Kiran, I'll start with you. As a leader, what is that one top priority or key focus area for you currently?
Keep my employees safe and enable them technologically so that everything is available to them at their desk.
Thank you so much. Hardeep, same question for you. What is your key focus area, your top priority right now?
Taking care of people's health, be it emotional, physical, mental, and of course financial.
Yes, absolutely. The second question to you, Kiran, what is that one idea on leveraging technology to boost experience that you would like to share?
I'm on a journey of making my HR function paperless in the next 5 months, and that I'm using Oracle Fusion HCM to do that. And basically, live up to the tagline that I coined: my HR at my fingertips.
Yes. Love that. I think, yes, my HR at my fingertips is something that we are all looking forward to in our organizations as well. So thank you for sharing that. And Hardeep, what about you? What is that one idea on leveraging technology to boost experience that you would like to share?
Treat the employee as a customer, solve for him or her as an individual customer. Just take care of him or her as a customer. That's it.
Customer is king after all, yes. So thank you so much for sharing that. So on that note, that was all we had time for today. And thank you so much, Kiran and Hardeep, for sharing such great insights with us. Something that really clicked with me is the healthcare industry is at the core of all the change, all the transformation that we're seeing that the pandemic brought about, and how it is reimagining itself with the help of technology. It's connecting people to the healthcare system, and how the HR leaders are connecting people to, people and their employees to each other. So making work more human in the entire process, taking care of everyone's well-being, be it physical, emotional, mental. So thanks for sharing those insights. Those were some great learnings for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was Apollo Hospitals, SV Kiran, and Oracle Corporation's Hardeep Singh sharing their insightful thoughts with us. We really hope you enjoyed watching it. We will be back with our next industry leader in our next episode. Thank you so much once again, Kiran and Hardeep. It was a great conversation. See you all
Thank you
in the
very
next.
much, Yasmin.
Thank you. Thank
Pleasure,
you so much.
Yasmin.